Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar with Expedia Media Solutions and Luth Research. Today we are going to explore some findings of our most recent custom research project, Understanding the American Bleisure Traveler. So Bleisure, it's a funny word, but it's an important and underexplored segment. Bleisure is defined as the business traveler who combines leisure travel before or after their business travel. We wanted to understand in this research why people bleisure and what are some insights that marketers can take away to help reach this segment of traveler. So we partnered with Luth Research to dig into this traveler a bit more. My name is Monya Mandich. I have been at Expedia for about 15 years, and I am the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications at Expedia Media Solutions. And I want to start off by saying that I am an avid bleisure traveler. Among my group's activities and responsibilities include the custom research projects that we commission annually on various topics to help inform our product development and also what we share with our partners. We also like to include a fun fact about our speakers. They tell me that it humanizes us. So my fact is that I operate as the unofficial and unpaid member of the Croatian Tourism Office. To be completely transparent, my family comes from Croatia. I have a whole village of Mandiches that are still over there. I visit often, and I am passionate about getting my fellow travelers over to visit this beautiful country for their next trip. So we love to have to hear from you and to have you connect with us. There's many ways that you can do it. We encourage you to subscribe to our blog and also to follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. We share insights from our custom research, from our internal and external thought leaders and subject matter experts within Expedia Inc. And again, we would love to hear from you. So if you have any ideas for research topics that we should consider, let us know through one of these channels. You may be familiar with our Expedia brand, but let me tell you a little bit more about our group. Expedia Media Solutions is the digital advertising arm of Expedia Inc. We work with marketing partners of all types around the world who are looking to engage with our global audience of travelers. And what you see on this slide is just a snapshot of our brands across Expedia Inc. We have solutions to meet many partner objectives at every stage of the marketing funnel or consumer journey, from inspiration to research and consideration to driving bookings and purchases, as well as sophisticated targeting, leveraging our proprietary first-party data. We are often asked by our partners about what trends and behaviors we are seeing in the marketplace, such as what influences travelers on their path to purchase, how to think about attribution with marketing, and how people are using different devices to consume and book travel. Along with the insights from our exclusive first-party data several times a year, my team works with research partners to develop these custom studies to answer questions on travel behavior, digital consumption, and more. So before we dive into the findings of our study today around the bleisure traveler, I wanted to call out that we will be sharing a lot of data in the following slides. But you don't need to be taking screenshots. We will provide a link at the end where you can download the study, and we also provide all attendees with a recording of this webinar. So sit back and enjoy the findings. Before we begin, I would like to understand who is joining us today. So if you can go ahead and select what type of business you are joining us from, I will share the results with the audience shortly. Great. So it looks like we have 50% of the attendees are coming from the hospitality space, which is great. I think you will definitely find a lot of learnings here to help you with your efforts. And then we have our destination, our DMO partners, and we're happy to see you here. Ditto. I think there's a lot that you will find interesting from what Candice and Becky will be sharing. And then we also can't forget our airline and our other travel providers, which I believe probably comes down to activities and other spaces in travel. So now I'm going to turn it over to the brains of this presentation. We have Candice Rabb, Senior Vice President of New Products, and Dr. Becky Wu, Senior Executive Vice President at Luth Research. So Candice, why don't you go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Monya. It's really been a pleasure working with the Expedia Media Solutions group over the last several months to develop this profile of the American Bleisure traveler. She has asked me to share that fun fact. So first of all, I am the SVP of New Products at Luth Research. We are a long-standing research company down in sunny San Diego. So I always tell Monya, if you're not going to Croatia, come visit me down here. Let's see, I am the fifth of 9 children, so we can talk about what that means as an adult some other time, but certainly a very fun childhood. I am joined by Dr. Becky Wu. Let me advance the slide here. And Becky is one of the smartest researchers I know. Her and I have worked together for over a decade, and she's our Senior Executive Vice President, and she will paint Chinese ink paintings with acrylics. So she has a really amazing kind of technology and research background as well as an art background. Very exciting. So we're going to move right along. We really set out to accomplish a lot with this research, but there were really 4 overarching objectives that fed into what it is that we wanted to do here with this group. The first is that we wanted to understand what types of travelers are turning their business trips into Bleisure trips. We also wanted to know what factors influence extending a trip from Bleisure to leisure. We wanted to understand what activities or destinations are more likely to compel them to extend a trip. And more than anything, we wanted to make sure that data that came out of this study is actionable for the people on this call and the people that the media group services. So that was what we were really challenged with as we set out to move this forward. I keep advancing the slides, forgive me. So here's the methodology slide. It's a bit copy heavy, so bear with me for a second so I can break it down, because I want everyone to understand what went into the design of this study. So the first is that we leveraged Luth's research panel to identify 4,880 business professionals to ask them some basic classification questions. And within that audience, we identified people who had a business trip coming up in the next 3 months. So additionally, we identified respondents who were likely to turn that trip into a Bleisure trip, and this way we could focus on a very specific audience who are in the actual researching and booking phase of a Bleisure trip. So not an easy recruit, to say the least. But the reason for this very stringent criteria is that in the end, we asked a final sample of 128 respondents to participate in passive tracking with us. So passive tracking is something that we'll talk quite a bit about throughout this webinar. What this means is that they agreed to install our tracking device called ZQ Intelligence on their digital devices. So they install this app on their PC, their smartphone, their tablet. It's very quick to install. And then once they do, we're able to passively capture all of the websites and the apps that they visited. Everything is time-stamped, so you're able to understand the amount of time that they're spending on those websites and apps. We captured search behavior and quite a bit more over a period of 6 weeks. So this allowed us to understand digital behavior related to booking without actually having to ask them about all of those details. So it's really the combination of traditional surveys with passive tracking that made these insights really colorful and also quite accurate. So the respondents who participated in the 6 weeks of digital tracking also participated in a final survey at the very end, and that was the mechanism that allowed us to capture their feedback on their decision process for Bleisure planning and booking. Okay, that was a lot, but in summary, the sample plan for the study is 4,880 business travelers with a business trip coming up in the next 3 months, and 128 Bleisure travelers who have a trip coming up in the next 4 weeks. Okay. So who is the Bleisure traveler? I'll start by sharing some basic profiling, and then I'll turn it over to Becky to share more about the decision-making process. So specifically, why they are turning a business trip into a Bleisure trip. Okay, so here's a quick snapshot of some key demos of Bleisure travelers. They are frequent business travelers who work in a variety of industries, and their business trips last between 2 and 3 nights. Let's take a poll. I really like this, this functionality that you guys can sort of participate here. So what % of business trips do you think include a leisure portion? I'm just going to give you a second to log your answers, and then I'll share the results. Okay. All right, so we have 30% of people who have the correct answer, but it looks like most people assume that between 10 and 25% of business trips include a leisure portion. And here it is. It's actually 43% of Bleisure trips have a leisure portion. So the idea of Bleisure is really mainstreaming. Nearly half of business trips include this leisure component. So this slide reinforces the previous stat, but this is looking at really a breakdown of domestic versus international. So granted, most people are staying stateside. Nearly half are adding leisure to their business trips. And we'll get to why people decide to combine leisure with business. But first, what is the purpose of the business portion of the trip in the first place? You'll see that conferences and conventions clearly dominate. So business trips for that reason is more likely to turn into a Bleisure trip than client meetings or team offsites. An interesting note. So leisure days equal or exceed business days. This is just interesting more as an overarching sort of market trend. And this stat may be more useful in the context of maybe market sizing and really understanding what the opportunity is. And we will spend the next several slides diving quite a bit deeper into the topic of trip duration and why that matters. I always like to give just a second for people to be able to look at the slide. I know it's difficult to look at charts and graphs and also hear what it is that we're saying. But this digs into length of stay a bit more, showing that the average business trip length is just 2 nights, while leisure trips are much longer. And again, we'll talk more about this. Okay, so business trips with 3+ days are 30% more likely to add leisure. So the longer the business trips, the more likely that the person will turn that into a Bleisure trip. So we asked people about their last Bleisure trip specifically. How many days were they there for business versus leisure, and what were the key factors in extending the stay? And a longer business trip makes leisure more likely. 62% of people extended their last business trip because of the length of the business trip. So for people with 1 to 2 days of business, 54% made it Bleisure. For people with 3+ days of business, 72% made it Bleisure. I really like this slide. This is asking, well, first of all, it's we're wrapping up this section, so we're gonna end on this before we get into some of the profiling. But this next chapter is about attitudes toward Bleisure traveler. And the reason why I like this slide is because we ask people about those key factors behind how people decide or even think about Bleisure travel. And some interesting stats here. So first of all, they're saying, look, they're saving money because their company footed the bill on airfare. They're doing it because they don't otherwise get to take a whole lot of vacations. The last one, 54% of people are saying, look, I have the flexibility to orchestrate business trips around leisure activities that they intend to do anyway. That must be nice. But really, leisure first, business second. So we'll get to this a bit more, but I wanted to just kind of end that profiling section with some of this sentiment around Bleisure. Okay, so now they're going to take a trip. They take a trip. More than 80% stay in the same city as the area that the business obligation is in. So those spending more than 3 days for business are more likely to travel outside of the area. All right, so this is really about promoting the halo effect, if you will, to those staying in the area for 3 or more days. Okay, on the left-hand side, you'll see that most people will stay at the same hotel, even in the face of home rentals and competitors. But hotel is still the dominant accommodation. On the right-hand side, we asked, well, if you're not going to stay in the same hotel, why not? Right? If you're not going to stay in the same hotel for the leisure portion as you did for the business portion, why would that be? And cost is the #1 reason. I will turn it over to Dr. Wu to talk more about how Bleisure travelers decide, because certainly understanding these key motivations will help marketers, really anyone listening on this webinar, how to better serve and support these Bleisure travelers. So Becky, it's all you.
Perfect. Thank you, Candice. So Candice has just painted a broader picture of who these people are, what the Bleisure travelers look like, and so how do they make decisions? So as part of this study, we have really given a long list of factors that could potentially influence those decisions, and 3 of them are bubbling to the top. And these are what you're looking at right now on the slide. First and foremost, it is really about traveling to an exciting destination. So for those of you who are in the audience who are destinations, I think that these are a very important kind of takeaway from the study, and promoting that is key. And then, of course, there is the additional cost to extending the trip, as well as really the timing of the schedule of the trip, how close the trip is to the weekend. And here's the kind of the full slide to show you really the full list of factors that people are saying that are playing a role in their decision. So of course, if you look at the full list here, there are a number of them are actually kind of closely following each other. A lot of that is having something to do with cost and affordability. But I also want to call out that there are kind of 2 additional factors that we will also spend a little bit more time on later in the deck. One is really the idea of how friends and family are playing a role in terms of whether or not they are in the area, or whether or not you will bring them as company. But interestingly too, there's an influence from really whether or not there's an event going on in that area, right? And we have a few more interesting stats to show you later on why that matters and how to take advantage of that. So when we talk about destination being the #1 driving factor in really turning a business trip into a Bleisure trip, so what are the characteristics of the destinations that are kind of attracting these kind of Bleisure travelers? So the respondents have given really us all the key characteristics here. Not surprisingly, actually, we're seeing sightseeing locations is the #1 factor, and followed by beaches and the food and restaurants. And of course, there are a few other elements here, including museums and sports events and those kind of things. But sightseeing, beaches, and food and restaurants are the top 3 factors. So thinking about that and keeping those factors in mind, and we also ask the Bleisure travelers to give us a sense of what specific cities or regions will be really the top destinations for Bleisure. So you can see that there's a very detailed list here. And our actual full list is actually longer than that, right? So if you look at the numbers, they're actually fairly close, closely aligned. It's not that one particular destination is really having a much greater margin than the other one. So if you look at this, the top ones like the New York City, the Seattle, and Los Angeles, they are the usual suspects if you think about sightseeing locations being a very critical element in their decision. And then we look at some of the relatively a little bit surprising players such as Austin and Denver. And then we also talked about a slide ago about beaches being one of the factors. And if you see the full report, Monya mentioned that we will make available at the end of the presentation, you will see that we also have other locations such as some of the cities in Florida. So beaches definitely play a role there as well. So in addition to destination, in addition to other factors that we just talked about, events as a standalone element do play a very important role in the decision to extend a business trip into a Bleisure trip. And so 1/3 of the respondents are telling us that they will add on the leisure component if there's an event going on in that area. And on the right-hand side, you can see that what are the kind of the most driving kind of events, right? So there are the festival and culture event being the kind of the leading factor here, and then followed by sporting events, music concert, etc. You can see here. So there are a couple implications here if you think about that. One is that if your destination definitely promote the event as well as the destination itself and take advantage of that kind of influence, right? So if your events definitely don't underestimate the power of these kind of a connection and this kind of influence on people's decision to extend the trip. So with that, I'm turning back to Candice to talk a little bit about the process of researching and booking for the Bleisure trip.
Thank you, Becky. Right, so we talked about who the Bleisure traveler is, when and why they decide to convert a business trip to Bleisure, and this next chapter is about the researching and the booking process itself. So we begin to uncover those key touch points in the Bleisure path to purchase. So first of all, we wanted to quantify the length of the actual path to booking. So no surprise, it's very short, with most moving from what we would consider the dreaming phase to booking in 1 to 4 weeks. And the idea behind that is that when people have limited vacation time or limited funds, they spend a lot of time trying to get it right. So with Bleisure, these folks have more financial freedom, so they seem to accelerate the researching and the planning phase, just getting right into the booking stage. And so what this means, this is obviously a very clear takeaway for the people on this webinar, but given that the timeline is short, efforts need to be very direct and very impactful to drive people into the funnel and convert. So per the point before, most people are skipping the dreaming and the researching phases and go right into the near booking. And the vast majority of people are taking a very short period of time. You see on the left that the majority of people, they've already done the work for the researching. And on the right-hand side, these people are booking within 1 to 2 weeks, which just to compare with leisure travelers, we typically see about 6 weeks for booking, so quite a bit longer, or I should say shorter for the Bleisure traveler. Next, we wanted to take a look at order. So what we mean by order is in what order are people leveraging these touch points to actually book their travel. And order does matter because that is what's most top of mind for these people as they're ready to book. So when booking for a Bleisure trip, the search often begins with hotel and accommodations. So 35% of people research hotels and accommodations first. It's literally the first touch point people are going to land on, which tells us it's very high priority for them. So order of research is on the left of this slide, where what was researched is on the right-hand side. And you'll see that there's really a nice distribution of activities people are seeking. Up on top you have the usual suspects, hotel, airfare, restaurants, but down below you see that those other activities still play an important role. So 2 more slides before we analyze some of the digital behaviors associated with the booking. I like this slide though. This really tells the story of the key digital touch points leading up to booking. We see that over 60% of people are going to multiple websites before doing supplemental online research with search engines. So this tells us there's really plenty of opportunity to partner with a broad or even perhaps a broader set of partners, and that scale is key. Scale is really the message here. And we'll add a little bit more of this story in the next few slides. Okay, so we had to ask about satisfaction. Why not? Is the Bleisure traveler satisfied with the researching and booking process? And universally they are. So for those hotels joining the webinar today, congratulations. We're showing that 75% are somewhat or very satisfied. And Becky, I'm going to turn it over to you for another poll question. And I do know that in my poll question I didn't show the results. So we will make sure that you guys get to see in real time how the results populated based on the people who participate. So Becky.
Yeah, great. Okay. So everyone, it will be great if you can go ahead to answer the question on the screen here. As we all kind of just heard Candice talking about the methodology just a few slides ago about the fact that we not only use survey research for this particular project, right? We actually introduced the idea of passively tracking how these people are booking their trip and how they are doing the research during the process here. So I will be curious to know among all of you who have actually used what we call the passive tracking to really understand travel behaviors, right? Without asking people what you have done and giving them a list of choices, and you actually are tracking like what they are clicking on, what they are going to, and what kind of search terms they're putting in. All right, I will give it 1 more minute here to get some results. All right. Okay, let's see if we're seeing the results or not. Okay, so it's about actually close to half of you actually have in fact used some form of passive tracking, so that's great. So you guys probably already have a general sense of what those kind of digital behaviors might come from and they might look like. Okay. All right, so let's dive in. So as part of the study, and as Candice mentioned, we are actually tracking these people on their computer, their mobile phone, as well as tablet. Right? We want to have a cross-device kind of understanding of where people are doing these kind of research activities and what's the kind of the device driving some of these behaviors. So overall, if we take a look at the totality of digital behaviors, on my screen here you can see that the events, sites, and apps, and also OTA sites and apps are really driving the research activities, right? So when we talk about digital activities, we literally mean the sites as well as the apps that people are using and they are spending time with. And then you can see that there are other sites and apps of interest here as well. But overall, it's loud and clear that events and OTAs are driving the research interest there. So then among those people who are using the OTA site, which is about 41%, a significant share of that, and we know that OTA continues to be really the critical touch point in people's decision journey, right? And among those people who are using OTA sites, actually more than half of them are using 2 or more. So this is a very critical stat. It really shows that people are driven by still by a lot of interest in seeking out information from different kinds of OTA sites. So this definitely presents an opportunity of partnership, right? So if you are the hotels, you are the destinations, and you are the brands there, the partnership with OTA sites is going to make a significant difference because people are going there as one of their most kind of engaging touch points during the journey. So naturally, when we look at the PC, the mobile, including tablet and mobile phone, we definitely look at how people are using the different kinds of touch points against different channels, right? So you can see on my screen here again, the navy blue represents the PC activities, and the yellow represents the mobile activities, and then the light blue represents the usage from both devices. And in the next section, we're going to really break down and talk about some of the advantages some of these touch points have in terms of device affinity. But you can very quickly already see, I do want to call out that, like, for example, OTA has really a higher share of the mobile usage there, right? If you look at just the yellow bar, you will see that it's one of the, I think it's the second highest next to home rental sites and apps. All right. So after we have looked at the kind of total digital behaviors, we are now breaking them down onto the very specific device channel. So first we look at PC. So relatively speaking, PC is still very much preferred in many ways because of its larger screen, right? Easier to engage with and easier to spend time with. So here on the PC side, you can see that events and OTAs are still really topping the list of where people are spending most time with, right? And again, this is because whenever people want to really sit down and look at all the information they need to look at, and they need to make the booking, make the purchase, and that's where they go. And then we look at mobile. Again, mobile, we first look at mobile as a group, including both the mobile phone and tablet. And if you look at mobile here, OTA now actually is exceeding events even as the #1 touch point. This is definitely kind of telling us an interesting dynamic, right? So when people are on the mobile and on the go, OTA tends to be really the touch point where they will feel like, oh, I can see if I can just get some information very briefly, and I can check into that multiple times during the day and at various locations. So again, within mobile, we really first look at smartphone, and we then look at tablet, because as we all know, when we're researching for travel, and typically we do behave quite differently depending on which device we're using. So on smartphone, keep in mind whenever we are on smartphone, people are on the go. They don't have a ton of time. But that's also where you can really engage people for that kind of brief moments, and really encouraging that kind of really engagement with you. So OTA, very interestingly, definitely is the kind of the #1 destination, or the #1 touch point people are going to on their smartphone. And then when we look at tablet, Tablet usage for this particular group is a little bit lower than what we typically see on consumers on travel usage. And in part, it's because, as Candice mentioned earlier on, the window of making a decision for a Bleisure trip is quite short, right? There's a ton of time for people to spend on, being inspired, looking for a lot of information about the destination and what they want to do. So you can see overall tablet usage is relatively low. And with that said, if you look at the kind of the key touch points here, they're pretty much aligned with just a few slides ago how we see people behaving on PC, right? So again, from a lot of research we have done, we definitely see a common kind of theme here. PC and tablet behaviors tend to align better because they tend to be all stationary. All right. So one of the things we also look at in terms of digital behaviors is really how people are using the devices across the week, right? So especially for travel, there's always a lot of discussion, a lot of talk about, when you actually make the booking is quite critical in terms of getting the savings you want, getting the best deal that you want. So if you look at the week, from Sunday to Saturday, if you look at that, there are definitely some very obvious peaks and lows here. So Monday tend to be really the high digital activity day. And then as we go on into the week, and Thursday is the low, right? And then you see a little bit peak back up again on Friday. So definitely has some kind of a consistency to read how we read in the media about Tuesday or like Tuesday night tend to be maybe the perfect time for making the booking. And then we also look at, of course, the day of the week against really the type of touch points that people are spending time with. And you can see that in general, definitely we are also seeing a kind of a higher peak on Mondays and then a low on Thursday. But the type of content does vary a little bit depending on whether or not you're OTA or home rental or meta information. So depending on really the content that the content provider or the content partner that you are working with, they do have a little bit different patterns there. And then not only we look at the day of the week, we also look at really the time of the day, right? So time of day can be critical for a lot of marketers who care about, what's the right timing to push out the promotion? What's the right timing to really launch my campaign during the day? So this is really a kind of snapshot on how people are using their devices throughout the day. What's interesting here is that the kind of difference between PC and mobile. So the mobile is the gray line that you are seeing here, and then the mobile is the kind of the blue line you are seeing here.
Hey, Becky.
The primary difference. Yep.
Hi. We are running a little bit late on time, and we have lots and lots of questions. Since everyone's going to get access to this deck, are you comfortable just kind of going to just advancing 2 slides to slide 50 so we can wrap up the takeaways and then field some of those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So to wrap up here, I just want to call out the distinction between the PC and mobile was that mobile definitely has a strong affinity in terms of usage through the evening. So if we want to jump right to slide 50, we can wrap up the kind of the key takeaways here. So on the left-hand side, you can see that this is really a short list of key things that we would like you to really take home with, right, based on the kind of the insights we shared today. So overall, the key thing here is that the Bleisure trip definitely is mainstreaming. A significant share of the business trips are now turning into Bleisure. And secondly, destinations are really the first research topic or the most kind of the important driving factor here in decision. And of course, the characteristics that are dominant there will be the sightseeing and the restaurant scene. And then also, very importantly to note, the vast majority of the bleisure trips are staying in the same city, but there's definitely room to promote the halo effect that Candice talked about as well. And then, of course, a very important distinction about bleisure trip is that the path of booking is extremely short. So you only have a very short window of time to really influence that kind of decisions. And then lastly, a lot of the visitation in terms of to the touch points are still hovering over the event and OTA sites, making OTA really the kind of the ideal partner for the destinations, for the hotels to really engage the leisure travelers for marketing.
Thank you, Becky. And on the right-hand side, if you were multitasking while you were listening to the webinar, these three things on the right-hand side are really the key takeaways. So for you listening on the webinar, the opportunity to prioritize featuring attractions and events in marketing campaigns, capitalizing on that short path to purchase by providing really clear calls to action, and lastly, considering broadening relationships with strategic OTA partners to capture the bleisure researchers. So we will formally end the webinar here, but we definitely want to take some questions. So Monya, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Candice and Becky. I think that that our attendees will find a lot of interesting learnings on the Bleisure Traveler, and I appreciate your thoughtful presentation. We are happy to take questions. While we wait for them, we have a few that already came in, and we will address those. I just wanted to give everyone the link that we promised at the beginning to download the study. Here is the link, and you will find it also on our website, advertising.expedia.com. And finally, we will include it in our recorded webinar email that we will send out to all the attendees. So let's go to questions. So Becky, I'll let you and Candice decide who wants to answer this one, but this question is, what should hotels do to try and entice the 34% of bleisure travelers who indicate that they are likely to stay at a different hotel from where they stayed during the business portion of the trip?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the answer can actually be quite simple. So among the research the findings you guys have seen, hotel price is really the top reason that these bleisure travelers are not staying at the same hotel. So if we can really consider offering a discounted rate, that definitely will be a very key factor there.
Great, thank you. The next question comes from Henry. Is there any typical months during the year that bleisure is more apparent?
So I can take that one.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Candice.
Oh, I was just going to say I think we could probably find that in the data. I would just have to get back on that. Becky, do you know offhand?
No, I actually don't have that particular stat in front of me, but we definitely can go back to the study and kind of follow up with that particular audience person later on.
Great.
Okay.
Final question from Angela around the categorization of sites. So what is included in the travel media/info category? Are DMO websites and TripAdvisor included?
Yeah, so I think that the detailed categories, I think that we can definitely, I think it's actually part of the report. So I think, Monya, you can also probably also speak to some of the kind of properties under the Expedia Media Solutions that kind of fall into those categories.
Sure. I think what they're talking about is not around OTA, though. So why don't we follow up with you, Angela, around the different category of sites that Luth put into the research. So we have another question, again, about downloading the research. And so Again, you should all be looking at the slide that shows the link. So that http:/link, that is where you can download it. So that will show you the research. And it is case sensitive. So if anyone's having any problems, just make sure it's all lowercase. And then we did get a question around if we have done this study in Latin America, and we did not. This was our first look at the Bleisure, and we focused on the United States for the first round, and we're definitely open to exploring other regions. We think the findings were so interesting, and going into research, we never really know what we're going to end up with. So we're certainly open to exploring that in the future. I think that's it for questions. So I wanted to thank everyone for attending. We hope that you found some insights on the Bleisure Traveler that will help you capture more of this lucrative audience. After this, you will be served a short survey. We appreciate your feedback. It will help us be better and bring you more value. So thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Becky and Candice, and have a good day.